back to the Pigskin podcast. Ben Phersy and Jason Feldman. In case you haven't noticed, we're on TV, and I know Feldman looks very good on TV. I don't. I have a voice for radio and a look for radio. I guess
I look about a foot taller this week.
I know. Yeah, just so people do know, he has a chair that's slightly elevated to offset the.
And by slightly, you mean my feet can't touch the ground?
Accurate.
Okay. Let's talk about football.
Okay. Let's do that. We got Vikings first. We're going to touch on the Vikings and Gophers real quick. We're not going to do a ton of that stuff because, we know where our bread is buttered, high school football. So, Vikings made their final cuts. Feldy, any huge surprises there for you? And talk about the first game that's coming up.
Yeah, I don't think there were any big surprises. To see Marcus Sherrills make the team again was nice. There was such competition at so many spots that I don't know that we could say there were any big surprises. I like the roster the way it's set up. The guys that they kept, those guys too. Should make for an interesting season opener going to San Francisco. I guess you never know, Phersy, how things are going to play out when you play that late game on Monday night, that 9:20 kickoff. I mean, half the people in Minnesota will probably be sleeping by the time the ball goes in the air. But San Francisco is really depleted this year. I mean, both sides of the ball. You look, especially that defense. So, you like to think if, the Vikings are going to live up to some of the hype that we're hearing from them this preseason, that's a game that they have to win.
I was going to say, if they don't win week one, I think they're in huge, huge trouble.
Come home for Detroit and San Diego. If they go out to San Francisco and win, they come home and those look like winnable games. If they go out there and lose, who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's the first game, so it's hard to ever say what's going to happen that first game. But, if they can't beat San Francisco, they're in big, big trouble. So.
Get number 28 back in the backfield, though.
Never heard of him.
No?
Who is he?
Did you get rid of your Adrian Peterson jersey?
I did. I burned it. Yeah.
Well, we can hate him all we want for the things that he's done, but man,
he's a good football player. And he served the punishment that he was given at this point, so we got to embrace the fact that he's back.
It is nice to have him back, though.
Oh, him and Teddy together is awesome. And now they got Mike Wallace and how Charles Johnson does this year is another question. I think there's big expectations for him as well. They certainly have the weapons on offense. Offensive line is a bit of a question mark right now, so that'll be the thing that I'm watching the most in game one.
Yeah, they have to find a way to, they get some young guys that are going to have to step up and play well up there. Those last couple of preseason games, they really had trouble running the ball to the right side when you look at guys like Clemmings and Mike Harris. And so you worry how those guys are going to hold up when they actually see defenses that are scheming and throwing things at them that they haven't seen and becoming more complex. But I guess if Teddy comes out and plays the way he played down the stretch last year and you get Adrian back, maybe that can take some pressure off those guys up front.
Definitely. We shouldn't talk Vikes for too long here, Feldy, so let's move on to the Gophers. Tough game against TCU. Certainly could have been blown out there. TCU had a chance to blow that game open a million times, it seemed like. I know Boykin is a Heisman candidate, but I certainly don't see it. He missed so many wide open throws. He definitely moves well and can run and buy some time. I think the thing that stuck out for me in that game on their side of the football is their receivers come back to the ball. Mm-hmm. How many times did you see him roll out and every guy on that field knew, okay, come back to the ball and I'll get it. Gophers receivers aren't doing that. I think that's something they should learn from that first game is a good receiver is always coming back to the ball when things start breaking down.
So as much as we criticize Mitch Leidner for the way he played last year and the way he played so far in that opener against TCU, is that part of the problem? Is it just a receiving core that still has to learn or maybe isn't as talented as we want it to be?
It's part of it for sure, and I don't think it's fair to put it all on Mitch, but Mitch has to be better. I mean, his decision-making wasn't good. He missed some open passes, but yeah, you got guys dropping balls that they can't drop on third down. Roderick Williams dropped the ball on third down that you can't drop that ball. Mm-hmm. Now it gets covered up a little bit because Mitch completes the pass on fourth down, but you can't drop that ball. And yeah, I don't see the separation when I'm looking out there. Being at the game and seeing things kind of from overhead, you see a little bit of what Mitch is seeing, and I didn't see guys with separation. I didn't see him constantly missing open receivers. I saw a lot of times where guys just weren't open, and at some point in the game, you're just going to get frustrated and start throwing to guys who aren't open, and I think that's what happened a little bit.
You mentioned the other quarterback in that game, Boykin from TCU. Definitely, I would agree with you, did not look like a Heisman candidate, but how much of that was the Gophers' defense and the job that they did against him, especially in the second half? It seemed like after those first few minutes of the second half, TCU just couldn't get anything going.
I thought, to me, it was a lot, the secondary's good. They're good enough, and when a quarterback can move like that, things are going to break down, and if the receiver's smart and he comes back to the ball, you're going to, he's going to catch some passes like that. But to me, the biggest difference in the second half was the linebackers, because the first half the linebackers were awful. Right. I didn't even know they were on the field. I mean, they
contained him well in the second half.
They contained him. They made some huge tackles that stopped drives. A couple of young kids too that played really well. I think they're in good shape there. I think if these young kids progress that much from one half to the second half, I'm excited to see what they can do.
Was it Huff, the linebacker, who came in, played some stand-up DN too?
That Pook, I don't know if that's how you say his name, but transfer.
Yeah, they had a couple of those new guys that stepped in nicely.
Missed all last year. There's guys out there, though, that are still frustrating me, and a couple of them who are great athletes that take 2 steps in the wrong direction on every darn play, and sometimes they can make up for it because they're so athletic, but you're not doing that against Ohio States or TCUs, and we want this team to take that next step. So those guys got to be better if we're ever going to do that.
Overall, though, we talked about this last week. How much can Jerry Kill take out of that game in terms of going out on the road and recruiting? Now you just had the number 2 team in the country come in to your home building on national TV, and you played them to a 1-touchdown game. What does that do for the program?
I don't know. I never buy into that as much as some people say. I think the recruiting is done in the home.
So you're telling me that a 5-star kid sitting down on his couch in Florida doesn't want to come to Minnesota now?
I doubt that he watched that game because first of all, that game didn't start until almost 10 o'clock in Florida.
Right.
So I don't think.
Fine, California though.
Okay, maybe, but I don't buy into that too much. I just think we're going to know a lot more about this team this week. They play out at Colorado State, a team that they should beat. We'll know more. I think if they go out there and take care of business and beat them by 2-3 touchdowns, I'll feel a lot better about this team. I think there's still a lot of questions after that first game.
Yeah, I hate to use the phrase trap game because it seems to get overused, but I mean really when you're coming off a really well-played game against the number 2 ranked team in the country, now you go on the road in a game that people, especially your fans, expect you to win. They need to come out and have a good showing, and they need to come back with a win this week.
Let's move on to high school football.
Let's do it.
That's why we're here.
Yeah, we had a good week last week. Well, I had a good week last week.
You didn't even have a good
week
last week. We'll talk about picks later. Let's talk about our athletes of the week.
Let's do it.
I know who mine is. You know who yours is?
I do, yeah. There's no brainer this week. There were a lot of good candidates.
There were. That's what I was going to say. There are a lot of blowout games, and that certainly helps when you got individual performances in those blowout games. But, for me, I don't want to be the homer all the time, but I got to go with Mason Karstens because essentially the kid had 19 carries for 278 yards and 5 touchdowns in the first half.
Basically in the first half,
yeah,
right?
He played one series in the second half and got a couple touches.
In essentially a rivalry game, too.
In a game that I know Coach Kessler was worried about. Right. He knew that if they didn't play well in that game, they were in trouble. But
there was a lot of emotion coming from the other side in that game because, Byron always wants to give its best when they play Lewiston.
I know, I understand that. But
that's what happens when you win state championship.
Mason Karstens is an interesting football player to me because he's not a burner. Like the brothers were burners.
Right.
I've seen him caught from behind multiple times this year. Even in the Byron, I wasn't there, but I saw the clip of the Byron game, and I saw him get caught from behind. And he's not a burner, but what he does is he gets into the pile or gets into the line, and he sets up blocks well. He gets into the line, and you think the play's over, and then all of a sudden you see a guy fall out of the end of the pack for 3 yards, and he does that over and over again. It's like, that's how that kid racks up yards. Now in a game like that, he busted a lot of long ones too, but what he does is turns those 2-3 yard gains into 6 yard gains, and that's a killer when you think you got a guy stopped.
And I think I saw this right. He leads the state in rushing yards.
Yeah, I've got him with a different total than I saw up there. They've got him over 700. I got him at 679. I don't think there was only one game that me and the coaches had a little different, and it wasn't that different.
You better go back and watch some film.
I've watched the film. I know he's good. Another one I always want to give credit to is Carter Gregerson because without him, he reminds me of a kid that a high school friend of mine, Ryan Britz. He was a fullback at Gustavus, blocking for Travis Prunty, the kid who had like 1,000,000 1,000-yard seasons, and he was his blocker every time. Without him, nothing. I don't know. Mason Karstens, I'm sure he'd still be good, but having a fullback in front of you like Carter Gregerson is huge, and that line is starting to gel right now.
I was going to say, wasn't the concern coming into the year with some of the number of players they lost along the line? That doesn't seem to be an issue so far.
They had a couple guys back, replacing 3 starters on the line. The thing about them was when you win a Prep Bowl, That's a lot of extra practice for everybody in your program. I mean, think about how many extra
Right.
weeks of practice that is for your ninth graders. Kids that would be done with football, after the first game of playoffs if you lose. So I think that was huge for them. My bigger concern was the receivers and their blocking ability on the outside on the edge there. They want to run those option plays, and if your receiver can't block, you can't run that any kind of veer. It's not going to work. If you miss one block, Karstens is good, but he's going to get tackled if you miss your block. So, yeah, I think last week was their first week of good football, and hopefully they've got a much improved Cannon Falls team this week, and they'll need to be sharp again to get another victory.
Can I talk about somebody now?
No, not if it's
done.
your guy.
It's not.
What?
Come on.
All right.
I could pick Greg Henry. Did we not decide last week to name this the Greg Henry Player of the
Well,
Week?
yours is the Greg Henry Player of the Week. Mine is the Phersy Player of the Week. Or insert your brew pub Player of the Week here.
Brew pubs.
Yeah.
We should probably talk to some of those
Sample.
places. Would it be a much nicer background? I mean, no offense to the Post-Bulletin sign.
No offense to our great editors and videographers here that set this up. But anyway, your second-rate Player of the Week.
He's playing for an undefeated team, the number 10 ranked team in the state. Yeah, this one seemed like a no-brainer to me. Tate Kelly, the senior quarterback from Red Wing, 10 of 16, 332 yards, 5 touchdowns, and a win against Century. Look at where that Red Wing program has come. Just from last season or 2 years ago. That's incredible. And he completed 10 passes for 332 yards. I'm not very good at math, but that's a nice average. Don't see a lot of quarterbacks do that.
That's over 30 yards of completion.
Very good. Is it?
Yeah.
Get my
I did
calculator
math.
out to do those things.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
33.2 if you want to know.
okay. I'll come to you with my math
Yeah.
questions for now. But what a nice game for Kelly, and what a nice start to the season for Red Wing. They're undefeated for the first time in over a decade. I can't even remember. I didn't.
Maybe it
look up
happened
the
when
number.
I used to work in Red Wing at the paper there, and they went to the state semifinals. I think my second year there, and that's probably
It's
the
been
team.
a while.
It's probably the team. Well, I know it's been a while because Craig Dahl was the quarterback at East at the time. So
you think most of these players on this year's Red Wing team probably
No.
haven't sniffed a lot of success or
No.
seen the program have a lot of success. So
and that's a big thing. I had to cover Austin for a long time, and
right.
getting rid of the culture of losing it sounds horrible, and it is horrible to convince kids that you're supposed to win. You're not supposed to lose, that you can't accept losing. So
Yeah, it's coming around over there too, by the way. Austin, I watched them play against Mayo last week.
hard, though.
Austin's 0-3, but that's a good football team. And in that section 1, 5A is wide open. They could make some noise.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to
legitimately.
play. I mean, look
No.
what they did to these city teams.
Yep.
They had them on the ropes
Yep.
at halftime, and they just got to finish a game. I think.
Yeah, they have some athletes, good players over there. But this is a great way to transition into our picks for this week. Because look at that first game. Who would have thought 3 weeks into the year we're talking about Red Wing at Winona as a potential game of the week?
Undefeated.
I mean,
teams.
really, that's 2 3-0 teams going at it. But it's been. I wonder if these two teams have ever played each other
Undefeated?
undefeated. Maybe the first game of the
Maybe.
season, second game of the season. I don't know.
They're both long-standing, powers that have been good over the year, long time ago. But
Right.
yeah,
Been a
that's where we're going. Did you want to talk about your amazing victory last week that you had over me?
Wow, I'm trying not to brag, but
Why?
well, I did build. I'm surprised you even want to keep picking games. I've kind of built an insurmountable lead on you here. I went 5-2 last week. By the way, you were below 500. I don't know if you knew that or not.
First time in the history of the
Like I said,
picks, I would assume.
I'm not good at math, but I know 3 and 4 is not above 500.
Like I said, I like to let you feel like you're in it. I feel like if I had pulled away last week, you would have just quit, probably doing picks, maybe quit the podcast. So
Most likely.
I do what I got to do.
I usually take my ball and go home when I'm behind.
So you're 9-5.
So I'm 9
I'm
and 5.
8-6.
Yep.
That's terrible.
That's
we need to pick easier games.
But look at the slate this week.
That's not fun.
No. But for high school football fans,
It's
take
good.
your pick. You can go just about anywhere and see a good football game. So let's start with that one, Red Wing and Winona. Go ahead, since you're behind.
It's at Winona.
It's at Winona.
Winger dinger. I'm going with the Wingers.
Yeah.
Tate Kelly and the boys. I think get her done. I think Winona's legit too. Another team that you probably don't want to play here later in the season. But yeah, I'm going with the Wingers. 33-22.
I tend to agree with you.
What?
Both teams have won some close games. Winona's playing at home. It's hard to pick against the Windhawks, but I just like the way the Red Wing team is playing right now. Not only Tate Kelly, but Travis Toivonen too.
Big play wingers.
Wide receiver. Yeah, big play wingers. That's what they are. So I'm going to take Red Wing, and I'm going to go with them about 28-24. We'll call it a close one. Probably another late score. They seem to make a habit of winning these games late.
So next one, intra-city game between Century and JM up on the hill at Century. Century hungry for a win. They're 0-3. Jam, a couple of tough losses to very good teams, but they are 1-2. Who do you got, Feldy?
Well, like you said, JM has lost to two very good teams. They lost to Owatonna, who they seem to never be able to beat. That was a double overtime game. Lost last week to Mankato West, the number 1 team in the state, by 10 points. It was a 3-point game late. Century, it looked like maybe just watching by the score, they maybe took a little step back last week in that loss to Red Wing, but they're playing at home against an intercity rival. John Vick always gets that team emotionally ready to play those games, and they seem to be better as the season goes along. But that said, this JM team had big expectations coming into the year, and this is the type of game they have to win if they want to live up to those. So I'm going to take John Marshall to win this one 30-21.
Man, I want to take the Panthers in this one.
I know, it's tough.
I live a few blocks from JM, so I probably shouldn't do it.
I
don't want my house TP'd.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be a very close game. I think Century's going to lead that game for a long time, and I think JM's going to come back late. I'm going to go with 21-20 JM eking one out on the hill.
Good one. The next one, a battle of two ranked teams. So when you talk about the good games this week, this one's got to be among the best in the state. At number 10, Fillmore Central. At number 6, Lewiston-Altura. Both teams are 3-0, coming off good wins. Go ahead, Phersy. Who are you taking there?
I'm going Lewiston-Altura in a stomping. I think Lewiston is the real deal, especially offensively. I think they're going to score over 40 points in this game. Fillmore's a good football team. They do it with defense, so it's going to be defense versus offense in this one. So, boy, Fillmore. If Fillmore has a chance to win, it's by slowing this game down, and I'm sure that's what they're going to try to do. I said 40. I don't think they are. I think Fillmore's good enough defensively to hold Lewiston a little bit, but I still got to go Lewiston-Altura 35, Fillmore Central 21.
I hate to agree with you again, but I have to do it here just the way that Lewiston-Altura team
You're just going to agree with me the rest of the year?
I am.
So you stay one up.
Might as well just call it right now.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. Lewiston-Altura, just the way that team is playing, not only on offense, but they gave up 23 to Southland last week. I think before that they had given up, 6-7 points all season?
Scored like
first
60,
2 games?
70.
Yeah, their offense is just, legit. That's a good word for it. So
we got a lot of good double A. We look at how many top ranked teams we have.
Triton can't even crack the top
which is
10
a
in
joke.
the state.
They're top 10 team in the state. So voters, hurry up.
They're close.
Yeah.
Can I give a score?
Sure.
Okay, I'll take Lewiston-Altura.
3-2.
No. We're going to see some points. 40-28.
So no home run.
Late one.
Okay. All right.
Next one. A pair of 2 and 1 teams.
This is Goodhue versus Southland. Goodhue at Southland.
Goodhue at Southland.
The Wildcats taking on the Rebs. Both teams are 2-1. Both teams coming off a tough loss. Feldy, what do you got?
This is a tough one, and I already know which way you're going on this one because
I lost last week.
I can put Goodhue on here any week, and you'll pick them. So I'm going to go with Southland. I'm going to take the Rebels at home, and I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I'm going to say 21-18. Southland's going to come out on top. We're going to go 3-1.
Goodhue 21-6. I think Goodhue gets back on track after an odd week, filled with penalties. It was a weird game pace-wise. It seemed like that game, they never got into a rhythm last week, and that's why you saw so low scoring. So I'm going with the Goodhue Wildcats G-Force 21-7. 21-6. Missed the extra point. I'm sorry.
Southland, you're not giving their offense.
No, they're not getting their extra
or maybe
point.
Goodhue's defense.
Could be.
Yeah. All right, next one. Another game of the week candidate. How many games of the week do they have this week? 5,
This is the
6?
game of the week to me, period.
We just talked about Triton. They play host to number 1 Caledonia this week. It really, probably doesn't get much better of a matchup at this stage of the season, does it?
No, it's on the turf. Triton's defense is phenomenal. I mean, absolutely legit. Those Henderson boys are awesome. And Jax Bringleson's a heck of an offensive player. Just everybody there has to play both ways. They've only got 13 total seniors and juniors on their roster. Total. I mean, their sideline looks like a 9-man sideline, and yet they're just pounding teams.
So they're going to be good for years to come.
They are, and they are still fairly young too. They've got some seniors that are key parts of their team, but they're still pretty young. But as much as I say about Triton, Caledonia's score the other week tells me everything I need to know about Caledonia. I just think they're deeper. I think it's going to be a darn good football game on the turf over there at Triton. I'm going to go with Caledonia 37-30. I think it's going to be a fun game. I wish, I'm going to be at the Lure game, and obviously I can't argue with that, but Wish I could go to that game.
Yeah.
That's the game of the week to me.
I think we all would like to be at about 4 or 5 different places this week if we
Nope,
could.
I just want to be there.
Just that one?
Yeah,
just at Triton? Okay.
You're way off.
This
We'll
to
see
me,
if you're way off on your pick here.
Well, we'll see. I might have to agree with you again. I hate myself when I agree with you. I really do. But this is, we talked about the Lewiston-Fillmore game, how Lewiston is just such an impressive football team. It's nothing against Fillmore Central. Same thing here. Nothing against Triton. That's a good football team. They're going to win. They might win the rest of their games this season. But I think Caledonia just has too much this week, and I'm gonna take the Warriors to win about 35-31. I think, like you said, it'll be close, but it's two really good offenses going head to head. So, speaking of two teams that have good offenses, we've seen both of these teams put up points this year. The next one, the Crescent at PEM, Plainview-Elgin-Millville. They're both 2-1. PEM's coming off. I guess it was a surprising loss to me. Anyways,
I guess Brady Berge makes a bit of a difference for that Crescent football team because I did not expect that score. Having Cass and Manorville beat up in Plainview like that, a team that
35-13, Casson beat PEM. PEM went into that game 2-0. Casson was 0-2. Like you said, they got Brady Berge back. Hard to believe one guy can make that much of a difference.
Especially in football.
Yeah, maybe so.
I think he was key to that offense this year. So, boy.
That La Crescent team, too, you look at it last week. We talked about them. Both you and I went with Lake City in that game. La Crescent went out and beat them by 10 points. So maybe we need to open our eyes to the Lancers a little bit, too.
Who are you picking in that one?
I'm going to go with La Crescent.
Oh, I made you pick first.
Yeah.
I'm going to go whatever you didn't say. That's what I was going to say. I'll go Plainview then.
Okay.
Chase Raymond might be the best running back, and I think they're going to have a hard time slowing him down. I think it's going to be high scoring. I really do.
Agree.
I think we're going to see a lot of points on the board. I'll go Plainview 30, La Crescent 26.
I'm going to take La Crescent also in a high-scoring game. I'm
taking Plainview. You're taking.
I'm also taking a high-scoring game.
Gotcha.
37-30.
Oh,
a lot of the same scores, don't I? That's all right.
We got a 9-man game on here.
One 9-man game.
What were you thinking?
I don't know. I can't pick 9-man.
Mabel-Canton.
I feel like
Randolph.
I have to have one on here every week just so that when I actually get one right, I can say, look at that. I know a little bit about 9-man football.
It's hard for us to pick Randolph because we don't see
Really
Randolph
is.
enough. I appreciate their coach. He calls on their stuff. Their AD called the other day. So
Maybe we
I
should
like
pick them just for that reason.
I'm not going to pick them for that. I'm going to pick Mabel-Canton.
Yeah.
I'm going to pick Mabel-Canton. Maybe a lower score than normal 9-man game. I'll say 27-20.
You know, if Mabel-Canton wasn't a Southeast Conference team, if they weren't in the same section as Grand Meadow and Spring Grove, they would probably be getting a lot more respect and credit around the state. They did get votes in the state poll this week. They're 3-0. They've been blowing teams out. If I remember right, I looked at their schedule, and with the new district scheduling this year, they don't play Grand Meadow or Spring Grove, if I remember correctly. Or maybe it's one of the two. But I was shocked to see that. Anyways, I'm going to go with Mabel-Canton, too.
Going from years when they used to play some teams twice in the same
That's a long road trip, by the way.
Well, Randolph is in that conference now, right? Or in that
They're all in that district.
district.
Yep.
So talk about a long trip. Randolph has a long trip every darn week.
Right.
I mean, think about some of those games down in the corner of the state there, Houston, for Randolph to have to go down there. And, it's goofy.
I'll take Mabel-Canton 32-14. I think they're going to win big.
Well, Feldy, that's another week.
That's
I don't know. We're trying out the video format for this week and see what you guys think. If we are far too ugly for the screen, then we'll just keep doing the podcast.
So you may or may not see us next week.
Yeah. Or you'll hear us.
But
like
at least I look like I'm taller.
We're still looking for sponsors. We're still looking for names.
Hit us up.
Pigskin podcast is what we're
you don't
doing
like
right
the
now.
way
Even
we
though
look,
it's not even a podcast.
If you don't like the way we look, just shut the video off and listen to us.
You do that too. So thanks for
Christian.
watching / listening, whatever you're doing. Appreciate it.